Hey everyone, it's Sheeta Bella, and today I want to talk about failure. So, I want to talk about failure today and how I've been dealing with it and what I'm even referring to when I'm talking about failure. I have been a little bit absent from my channel for a few months, and it's because of what I've been going through and because I've been dealing with my own version of failure and how that's impacted my channel, how that's been impacting my life, and how I have been learning some things even through this process. I want to discuss that with you guys today, and if any of you are also dealing with something similar, if you have dealt with something like this, maybe it can be helpful to you, maybe it can be reflective for you guys as well, for you guys to even hear about something like this, because it's been hard for the last few months. Before we get into that though, I want to show you guys these glasses that have been sent to me from TIJN Eyewear, or TIJN Eyewear. I have gotten these blue light glasses in the mail. These are important for me because I do a lot of art on a daily basis. Right now I am doing some freelance work, so these come in handy for me on my long days, long hours of drawing on the computer, as well as I also enjoy a bit of gaming. So I've really been enjoying this really great game on the PC called Genshin Impact, and I've been playing this game non-stop. I use these glasses to help me to protect my eyes from any damage from blue light. I think these are really good glasses. I want to do a test for you guys as well in these glasses. It shows that the product is actually a really good product, and that's why I'm vouching for it. So I have these blue light strips here for this test strip. It's an anti-blue ray testing card. When I put the lens directly on the card, there basically nothing happens. Like, literally there's nothing, and that shows that the glasses are like good at protecting your eyes against blue light, and I really like them. They're also super cute. Like, look at these like gold rims, you guys. Like, come on, these are like the cutest. They also sent me some sunglasses as well, and these are also cute. As you all know, I was living in South Korea, in Seoul, and when I first arrived in South Korea, I was originally a teacher, and I've talked about that so many times on my channel. In my last year in Korea, I was an artist. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would ever end up doing art at all, much less in South Korea. But I was doing that and I really enjoyed it. But a lot of bad things happened in that year that I never talked about. I want to talk a little bit about those things today with you guys and just kind of open up about what I've been going through, all the stressful events that has happened to me in the last year. Well, maybe not the full year, maybe about like 6 months. I've kind of been a little bit MIA. Like, even on my Instagram, I've been a little bit absent because I didn't want to be seen. The thing that compelled me to go to South Korea was, if I'm going to be honest here, a lot of it was the entertainment coming out of South Korea. When I was in high school, I found out, or I was introduced to groups like SNSD, groups like Shiny, and then I branched out to like FFX and several other groups that I was introduced to around that time, and it made me like, it sparked this interest in South Korea for me. Before, I was very much more into Japanese culture. Like, I'm so much into anime and gaming and stuff like that, and I still am, of course. Around high school was the first time that I was really like, okay, South Korea definitely has some interesting things. Even though I'm a little bit ashamed to say it, it was because of media. From K-pop, I branched off to K-dramas, of course, and I went down that rabbit hole so far. I was watching dramas like it was nobody's business. I eat, sleep, drank dramas, okay? And I did that for a long time. I don't know, I kind of just built up this like imaginary concept of what South Korea was. I think like a lot of people do. I got really interested in it, but I didn't think to be like, you know, what would be cool to move to South Korea. That wasn't even on my radar as of yet. When I was like, you know, studying and doing my college thing, I started to come across K-YouTubers, people of color, especially people of color, because that's very important. A lot of K-YouTubers that were talking about their life in South Korea, and that really intrigued me, because I'm like, wow, they're out living in South Korea. That's amazing. And it sparked this interest in me again. I had already had that spark from media, and now I had that additional spark because like now it was tangible. Looking and consuming media, it's cool and everything, and you can get a grasp of the culture. But when you feel like you can connect to a real tangible person just like you, but they packed up everything, they moved across the world to a foreign country, that starts to intrigue you because it starts to make you think like, oh, this is also possible for me. I came across a certain YouTuber. She was talking about how she was teaching out in South Korea, and I was like, that's it right there. I'm gonna try this out, because at the time I had nothing to lose. I was just out of college. I didn't have any prospects here in America, so I thought, why not? So I went over, hop, skipped, and jumped on over to South Korea. The other thing that was so compelling about it too was Japan was so close. Like it was just like maybe a 2-hour plane ride from Japan. I'm just like, 2 birds, 1 stone. That was my whole thing of what brought me originally into Korea. The work culture in South Korea is very demanding, to say the least. When I was working as a teacher, it was very hard. I had very little freedom in what I could do. Korean work culture is just very demanding, even much more so for teachers. Unless you have a really good company that really values you as a worker, the teaching system in South Korea, you're very disposable. Even if you quit, they'll have a new one like next week. So they don't really care about you. They don't value your health. They don't value your mental state. They don't value anything. They basically made you lie when you graded the papers just so you could satisfy the parents. I never got paid on time, literally ever. When I was working at the kindergarten, they did pay on time, but they had a whole set of other issues that I talked about in a video already. It's not like they were any better. Literally, I think one of my coworkers had to sue the company because they hadn't paid him in like months. There was a ton of issues with the work culture in the teaching company. When I went to my company where I was a designer, a background artist, that had its own array of issues that I'm gonna get into. When I first got there, the company I was so grateful for, because I had been trying to get into a Korean company, and a lot of the other companies fell through just because of communication. But this job, it was at a startup company, and they were very open to hiring me. And I was really grateful because I was like, yes, oh my God, I'm one step closer to being an artist, living in my passion. The first few months of that job was good. It was just a little bit strenuous because we had to work a lot of hours. Even at the time that we were supposed to go home, people typically did not get up. Like they were staying 2-3 hours after the time that they were supposed to go home. That was the only issue that I really had at the beginning of working at a company. Things started to go under when they started to expand on the company. They started to hire on new people because I guess they were getting more, either they were getting closer to our deadline or they were just getting more income, I guess. And they decided that, okay, so if we hire on more people, we can get this project done more efficiently and also quicker. Prior to our director hiring on all these people, it was a very close-knit kind of environment because there was only like less than 10 people working at the entire studio. And then by the end of it, it was closer to 30, 40 people. It was very much more of like the quintessential Korean workplace. And I don't mean that in a good way. The Korean work culture is just something that I don't find that I can acclimate to. at all. If I can describe it, it's just very hierarchical. For example, if I wanted to talk to my director, when we first started at the company, I could just go and talk to her directly. But that's very informal, especially for a company. So when we started getting more people working at the company became more and more and more formal. It started to get like, oh, well, I could just go into the director and talk to myself, to I now have to go to my team leader, to the PD, to the other PD, then to the director. And it slows down progress. There's miscommunication sometimes, and it's just a mess, really. I don't really agree with that system, but I don't think that's just exclusive to South Korea. I think that it was just weird adjusting to it because we had never been like that before, but then we were now like that. You also have to have a full dedication to your job. It was literally written into my contract that I could not do part-time work. I was literally not allowed to have a part-time job because I needed to have full focus on my job. One time I mentioned to my boss that I didn't have a boyfriend, and she was like, good. She was happy because that's a distraction from my job. Even though I was doing an art job, but this job was still so strenuous. I had no time to myself at all. Our director also expected us to spend a lot of time together, so she would make us eat together, do karaoke together for like, I guess, team building. I think personally, after hours, after we are supposed to go home, I feel like we should just be allowed to go home. That's not how it works in South Korea. If the company decides to have a hoeshik, for example, like a work dinner, then you can't really say no. There'd be times when I would want to go home after work. I would just want to go home and go to sleep. But I was expected to go to eat chicken with my coworkers when I didn't want to, do karaoke when I didn't want to, have a party at the workplace when I didn't want to. I know that sounds like I'm complaining. If I want to go home, I should be allowed to go home after work. I'm the type of person, I don't really view my coworkers as my friends. I know that probably sounds bad to some people, but you're my coworker, you're not my friend. We just work together and that's about it. I just feel like I shouldn't mix leisure with business. Am I weird for that? If you try to deny it or say that you don't want to, it's kind of like an insult to your superiors. Saying no is like, you don't really do that. We're also expected to do a large amount of work in a minimal amount of time. We had the tightest schedule I have ever experienced in my life. I mean, I know I went to university and we had pretty tight schedules then too, and this job kind of reminded me of that. We were expected to do fully detailed digital paintings in like 1 or 2 days, and it was just impossible to do the level of detail that our director required in that amount of time. It's just not possible. If you want to do good work, that is. If you want crappy work, then sure. Our director kept pushing us to be able to do those things. It began to become a strain on our entire company. Our director she just thought that we were like machines, I guess, and we could do all of these, immaculate work in no time at all, and that's just not how it works. It came to a point where we were no longer getting paid. The director had set us all down and told us that they no longer had any funds. She said that she would eventually have the funds at a later time, but at the time that we were asking for our payment, we could not get paid. On top of that, she also asked us to stay after work until I think it was around 10 p.m. So we came in at 10 a.m. and she wanted us to work until 10 p.m. every night to try and get our film completed. I felt like that was incredibly unfair. I don't know why she thought that it was a good idea. On top of not paying us, to also ask us to stay longer at your company and do more work for you completely insane. When I tell you people started dropping like flies from the company, I felt really bad for this other person that was working at our company because he was also a foreigner and he had probably only been working at the company for about 2 months, left his teaching job to come and work at our company, and in less than 2 months he had left his teaching job, was not getting paid from our job, so he was forced to leave. There was many people like that who left their jobs to come and work at this job, and they had to leave because they were no longer getting paid. My company did ask me to stay. At first, I was gonna wait it out. I was like, okay, well, she says that she's gonna pay us eventually, so maybe I can wait for her to try and pay me. It got to be to a point where I was just like, okay, I don't think we're getting paid anytime soon, so I had to make a decision. From the time that I got to Korea, after about 1 year in, I was already on this should I stay or should I go mentality, right? And I had been on that for years. Should I stay or should I go? Should I stay or should I go? And at that point, after all that had happened in South Korea, after the crappy teaching jobs, after the dysfunctional relationships with my friends and all of those falling through, after this job literally demanding me to just be a robot, I guess, for their company, I just thought enough is enough. I can't deal with all of this anymore. I chose to leave, and they begged me to stay. They begged me to stay. One of my coworkers was saying that like literally I'll do anything for you to stay, and actually I want to make that a separate story time because that was, I can't get into that in this video, but that was a whole ordeal and a half, so I'll make that a separate video. But my director also, she was telling me like I can stay in her house until we get this whole situation sorted out. I said no. I turned them down and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go back to America because this is more than I can deal with. I could have probably looked for another job, honestly and truly, but at the time I was just so exhausted. I was tired. I was so tired. I was tired of dealing with immigration. I was tired of dealing with miscommunication with Korean people. I was tired of exerting so much energy on a daily basis. I feel like I was on 100. I was living life on hard mode, and I just wanted to relax. I just wanted to not worry about my visa. I just wanted to worry about not being misunderstood all the time. I just had to explain myself so much to Korean people because they just did not get it sometimes, and it was just so exhausting. So exhausting. I'm so tired. People usually say, wherever you go, that's where you are. And in Korea, I was full of energy, full of life, full of the longing for new adventures. And then by the end of it, I was just exhausted. I was tired of the discrimination. I was tired of the work ethic or the work atmosphere. I didn't want to work myself to death, and that seems like something that Korean people value. I mean, American people value that too. I'm just not with it. Like, I don't want to work myself to the bone. I don't dream of labor, okay? I just want to chill. I really thought Korea would be a grand adventure. And it was. It was until reality set in. And then it wasn't. And the harsh realities of that world quickly humbled me. I was very humbled. Should I stay or should I go? I asked myself that the entire 4 years that I was in South Korea. And ultimately, I decided maybe it's time to go. And don't think that I value America much more than I do South Korea, because the divided states of America isn't really, it's not really giving for me right now either. But for right now, this is where I am. I just thought it was time to move on. So I did. So, just so happens that today is going to be the last day at my animation company. Right now I'm going to the post office to get some boxes so that I can continue to finish packing up my room. But yeah,